The Britomart precinct, bounded by Queen Street, Customs Street East, Britomart Place and Quay Street, is the largest heritage precinct that we have in the Auckland region. We have 18 buildings here that are all subject to conservation plans and are protected in terms of heritage provision.
The original foreshore is along Fort Street, and so if you have a look at the city, Shortland Street is some 15 metres higher than Fort Street, and that's the old cliff which formed the beachfront. And so there was a big headland that came down at the end of Princes Street, and that was mined. That was Point Britomart, it was called.
Britomart Point was demolished, and all the rubble was basically the basis of the reclamation between 1870 and 1886, that is between Customs Street East and Quay Street.
Basically the city was running out of land, flat land, in order to build the kind of warehouse infrastructure that a port city needed.
So everything was maritime based or maritime dependent.
At that stage, water transport was everything. If one wanted to go to Tauranga, one went by boat from here. If we wanted goods to come from Britain, then they came by boat. If we wanted to sell our wool and lamb, then it all left from here. When the guys went to war, they left from here. With a bit of time and walking around thinking about it, you can actually begin to understand a bit about what was the basis of Auckland's foundation. That it was an interface between the farming hinterland and Europe, you know, that it was a kind of a staging post, a kind of landing place. And we were concerned when we did the development here that you would be able to understand something about Auckland more than just today and more than just last year, that we would be able to understand it as a continuum, and as a continuum from 1,500 years ago, so that the presence of Maori elements, it's important that they're signalled, but then that the more recent trading commercial foundation of the city is acknowledged as well.
From the early days, there was an urban drift from rural communities seeking the new technology and the new information and education. So a lot of early Māori were employed, they were fit people, they made good labourers. My grandfather came down from the north, and he was loading off flour by hand off the schooners down on the wharf. And as a consequence, he got a huge scar on his arm that us kids used to ask him where he got the scar from. And he'd say, oh, a tiger bit me, shark bit me, and I bit it back and everything. But in reality, as he got older, his daughters and my aunties and that told us that he got it from getting a blister from using the same arm all the time and loading off the boats.
So our uses have changed a great deal around us. The bulk of the shipping now has moved further east into containers. And so all of these buildings lost their use. Going back into the 1970s and 80s, Britomart had been a transport interchange, a car park building, a bus station.
Certainly when I was growing up in Auckland, this area used to be a derelict bus station. It used to be full of lots of winos, and it wasn't the nicest area.
Earliest memories that I have was just getting off the bus down there. Back in those days, it could be a bit dodgy because it was the darker downtown side of Auckland at the time.
So the area was pretty tough, and so it was a place that there was drug dealing, there were hookers and all that kind of stuff.
This precinct as a whole, we had problems with vandalism and so forth. We had fires, and so it was just a rundown area.
Of course, the construction of the railway station swept all that aside.
The new transport centre, to me, feels a bit European in that the contrast of the gorgeous glass building up against the heritage buildings. I just fell in love with the area and thought, I think it's a great place to start a restaurant. We did a lot of market research in terms of trying to understand how people identified the place, what people wanted, in terms of really thinking about it as a brand. We came to realise that it was one of the most recognised names in the city. So that sold what you called it. There was a lovely fit with our research and our own sense of values. And so we have gone about creating this place in a way that people would basically brand it themselves.
The trick, I guess, in dealing with precincts like this is somehow you want to keep that character, that kind of slightly raffish kind of character to it, and not swamp that with too many high-end retailing. But you need that retailing to make it work. You need, it has to be sustainable.
And so it wasn't us trying to impose architecture or our philosophy on who would come here. It was enabling people to actually find a fit with where we were going and really take ownership themselves.